Hey everyone, welcome back to the Superhero Show. Oh, you weren't ready.
I wasn't ready. You can keep going if you like.
I'm Daniel, this is Chris, and this week we're going to be talking about X-Men Apocalypse, because we've talked so much about Civil War, Batman v Superman, and we're going to get onto your feedback about Batman v Superman.
Yeah, had a lot of... Actually, we've had the most emails we've ever received for a show.
Yeah, and so we're going to go through a variety of different opinions and discuss, more about that movie, because obviously it's such a big talking point. But X-Men Apocalypse is the one that I feel like we've not really discussed as much recently.
Yep.
But I love First Class, I love Days of Future Past, two of my favourite X-Men movies that they've made, really. And we've got the third one this year so soon. What are your initial thoughts on it?
I am very excited. I think I've said before on the show that I think to be a really great superhero movie, you need a great villain. And I'm really hoping they've got it this time, because the X-Men films are really interesting in that Magneto is kind of the villain, but he's kind of an anti-hero at some points, and he's really interesting, but we've seen that played out quite a few times on screen now, and now we're going to have a mutant come in that's infinitely more powerful than Magneto, to the point that he pretty much enslaves him, and I think I'm really excited to see that. Plus, we all like Oscar Isaac, don't we?
Yeah, Oscar Isaac's phenomenal.
What are your thoughts? Because I know you were like...
I'm lukewarm on the trailers, even though I'm still very excited about the movie, because obviously the trailer's no indication on the final movie. It gives you some sense of it. But I just don't... The trailer just didn't do it for me. And it's little things. I just don't particularly like the all black costumes.
Yeah.
These are minor things, but I think if you're doing it in the 80s, just go for it.
Yeah.
It's your one shot to really just go for it and go full comic book.
And it is the best decade.
Yeah.
Ever in history, so...
Yeah.
Go on, sorry.
Yeah, so I'm a bit lukewarm on the trailers, but I'm really looking forward to it. I think Apocalypse is a great choice, cool storyline. The only reservation I would have is that trilogy is now a trilogy of prequels. Xavier and Magneto have always been at the forefront of that. It's been like a more detailed focus on their relationship, and I just hope, because of what happens to Magneto isn't what happens to Hawkeye. Yeah. He's just kind of this pawn in the movie. And I don't think he will be. I think you can't do that to Magneto or Fassbender.
Yeah. Well, I think it's definitely going to be more complicated than that. I think they've said that we're going to meet him when he's really at his lowest ebb. And it's the idea that this guy is the ultimate kind of cult leader, Apocalypse. He can manipulate you, but he can also be very persuasive. And I think it's going to be... I'm hoping that the film is going to be as much about his powers as it is there's going to be some grey area where, is he making people follow him, or do they want to? Is it innately inside them? And I think that's going to be what it's like with Magneto, which is what it's like with a lot of people that end up following cults, is he's in a bad time in his life, and suddenly this bloke appears who's so powerful and can achieve the things that he could only dream of. And so the best thing he can do is team up with him. It's kind of logical for him to do that. Yeah,
it's that cult of personality, but almost as a power. He can literally control people.
And it's going to be cool to see the Four Horsemen, although I've heard that maybe they weren't even going to call them that in the film. But
they make a line. There's a line in the trailer that alludes to it, but yeah, they might not officially refer to them.
And it's just going to be cool to see characters that are kind of good turn bad, or that traditionally been good. Yeah. And I think they've talked about, we went on set and they were talking about the fact that it's not going to be the horsemen of the comics, where it's war, pestilence, famine. It's going to be more like factions of a cult. That's how they're thinking of it, like the military, sex, youth, political, and that's what these four people like Magneto's the political one, Psylocke is the kind of sexual.
Well, it'd be interesting to see how they tie that into the era it's based in, because I think First Class did a really good job of weaving into a real life world event with the Bay of Pigs and the Cuban Missile disaster. I think that's having that historical, and X-Men always having this political bent to it. Yeah, I think that's a really cool element.
Well, what would it be? You've got the Cold War in the 80s. There were every villain was a Russian villain in the 80s. So I don't know if that will play into it. I think we know that Magneto, I think he's in Poland, actually, when they find him in that steel mill. Yeah. Something's happened that's led him to go there.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that stuff we found on set that's on the site. Yeah, it will be interesting. And also, it's how do you end these movies? I think there was some criticism of the last movie, the stuff around the White House that didn't work, or, got rid of Quicksilver because he could have fixed all that in a few seconds. And they've Kimberg told us that it's going to be visually unbelievable what we see, and kind of a world-changing event that will kill a lot of people if it comes off. And he was saying it's something you've never seen on screen before, so I'm quite intrigued by that.
That's quite a bold statement.
Yeah, they'd probably say that before every one of these films.
It's one of those things like if it doesn't happen, you probably forget about the quote.
Yeah.
But I want to know what happens next.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to think in threes, because like it does feel like the culmination of a trilogy, and then we're kind of approaching the time of the original movies. You know, that was 2000.
Yeah.
So we're now into 90s, and even though the events of Days of Future Past has put us on a slightly new timeline that frees them from some continuity problems, it'd be interesting to see which characters really succeed, whether they will retain those roles if they do a 90s movie, or whether they just go, hey, we're modern day now.
Yep.
And they kind of try and fudge the ages a bit.
And how Deadpool will affect things as well, whether he's going to come in. Yeah, it's obviously a lot of people's contracts are up after this film. I think McAvoy, Fassbender, Jennifer Lawrence, their contracts are all up for renewal. I think she was quoted this week from the set a while back saying that she wants to do more of these, but...
Did she? Like, it's interesting to see how many scenes she has not in the blue makeup these days. Like, I'm sure she's put that into her contract for this movie.
And it'll be interesting to see how the film ends, because obviously some of these characters, these beloved characters, are going to be on the evil side for most of the movie, the bad side. Will, at the end of the movie, if they defeat Apocalypse, will they no longer be enslaved, or will Professor X make them see the light, and so that they can kind of come into the fold?
Like recruit Storm, for instance. Yeah, I wonder whether it'll just... We'll have this movie, there'll be a gap, and then we get a complete new X-Men, which will be a shame, especially if, like, say Storm's brilliant, or the new Cyclops is brilliant. I wonder whether that changes the plan slightly and go, well, we could do a 90s one.
Well, I think they have been very reactive, because I interviewed Simon Kinberg, who writes a lot of these and produces them, after I'd seen Days of Future Past, but before it came out, and was saying to him, in the preamble for the interview, I was saying to him how much I like Quicksilver. And he said, oh, you're not the first person to say this. And I said, that's the best I've seen in the film. He goes, yeah, we kind of realised that. He said, I'm literally having to go, I'm working on up to Apocalypse now, and we're actually changing it so that he can have more of a role, because it's obviously he's going to be the breakout character. So it's good that they are being reactive in that way.
That's really cool, yeah, and you can see a little glimpse of that sequence in the trailer where it looks like the X-Mansion's blowing up and he's running across floorboards as they bulge with an explosion. Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
I just, the trailer didn't do it, but I think everything else, and based on the last two films...
Yeah, Singer's not made a bad X-Men movie.
No, he hasn't.
And yeah, I'm excited to see this villain. Cool. I can't wait to see.
Awesome.
Right, now on to business. Oh, sorry, I had an email as well I didn't read out. Aaron Jones says, will anyone die in X-Men Apocalypse? From the trailers, it appears there's going to be a massive showdown between X-Men and Apocalypse's mutants, with several mutants fighting one another. In fact, Mystique describes it as war. In that case, I feel it would be a real cop-out if no one died. I feel like we say this about a lot of superhero movies, that we want someone to die. Yeah. You want the stakes to be that high.
To mean stuff.
And it hardly ever happens, actually.
Yeah.
It's very rare.
They're definitely not killing this Quicksilver.
No.
I'd be very surprised if they killed.
Yeah, agreed.
Who's expendable? Oh, I know who they're going to kill. Havoc. Cyclops' brother.
Yeah.
They'll kill him. He's not suited up in the trailer at the end either.
No.
Spoiler.
Who's that?
Well, if I'm right.
We've actually speculated about that in the office. Yeah, I'll go with that.
I think so as well, because especially if you're introducing Cyclops. He's the main summer.
Tough lad.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, do you want to intro this?
Yeah, why not? So we talked about Batman v Superman last week. People asked why we hadn't done a full spoiler cast, but it's because the guys in LA did an extended spoiler cast and a review. There were we got so much feedback. A couple of people asking why we were so miserable last week, but it's because we were a bit sad, really. We really wanted to like this film, we didn't.
Yeah, neither of you and I were the biggest fans, but we can see things that work in the movie. And I don't think we weren't trying to be down on it for the sake of being down. I think I was just still a bit down from just seeing it because I wanted to love it, and I didn't. Some people do, and I'm really happy that some people do love it.
So we got, like I said, the most amount of feedback. I think I went through about 80 emails. I would say 75% didn't like the film, and about 25% did, or some people were kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
So we've printed out an even amount of each
Okay.
kind of feedback. So I'm going to kick off with people that liked it, and we're just going to go
Yeah, you're giving me all the bad ones.
people that didn't like it, people that agreed with you,
Yeah,
and I've got the ones of people that are slagging us off. So
it's a mixed bag, isn't it?
yeah. Oh, that's Aaron Jones' X-Men email. That's no good. This is for Tim from Melbourne. Says, went to BVS today and I couldn't help but walk out at the end and buy a ticket to the very next screening. He did a
got you there.
Yeah. What a breath of very serious fresh air. There was so much that could have gone wrong, but even the small things that seemed incongruous the first time around didn't seem to bother me second time around. Like Man of Steel, actually a lot better on second viewing. And a few people have said that. I've read a few, and I think we've got some here, people that liked it second time more.
I'm going to go see it again this weekend. So we'll talk about that a bit more next week, maybe what a second viewing does.
So Tim liked it.
Daniel Thomas, I really wanted to like BVS, but I just couldn't pass the choppy dialogue, incoherent pacing of the movie, lapses in logical thought by our heroes, all in service for a fight, and overstuffed runtime. I did like a very few things, including Batfleck and Wonder Woman, but I shouldn't walk away having more anticipation for another film while I'm still trying to be invested in your film, aka Wonder Woman.
Interesting, good points. I agree with most of those ones. Spencer Dalzell says, seeing everything play out on the big screen and the way each of the characters interacted has been something I've been waiting for since I first started reading comic books. While some critics seem to bash the movie for being too serious, I think the movie makes us ask ourselves questions. What is right versus wrong, good and bad, light or dark? Something that we've not seen in any of the MCU do yet. At Spencer from Seattle, Washington. The state above California, not Washington, DC.
Gotcha.
See, I disagree. I think Marvel have done that and have done it better, and they're certainly going to do it with Civil War. But I think a lot of the characters have been conflicted in their way. You know,
I think there's also, because a lot of feedback and a lot of discussion about this last couple of weeks or last week. There's this kind of thing that DC is serious and Marvel is fun and frothy, and I feel like you can be fun and serious, and you can be serious and bored. Like, here's a good example. I think Flash is super light-hearted and fun and breezy, but it doesn't mean it can't have depth sometimes. Like, depth isn't the opposite of being fun.
Yeah.
Like, the end of season 1 of Flash meant something to me. Like, I was bold, I had tears, I thought it was serious.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you can be serious and fun. Dark Knight is a very serious film, but it's an enjoyable film.
Yeah.
And that's my personal taste.
Well, I just feel like life has serious moments and light-hearted moments, and kind of, I think the best movies mix the two of those. But yeah, we're not we don't want a Batman Superman movie that's blooming full of jokes, which I think has
become a thing.
Yeah. Is it you next, or actually?
I think it's me. Byron from Bradford. He saw Batman Superman last night. What a shocker of a film. The story is a muddle. Lex is awful. Superman basically lets people die again. Wonder Woman was okay. I actually enjoyed seeing the lasso being used. The dream bits were a mess. The whole here is the rest of the Justice League on the laptop felt tacked on. The Flash appearing in a dream or wherever it was strange.
Yep. Vincent Hart says, I actually quite liked the movie. Pacing was an issue at times, undoubtedly but I felt that Lex taking advantage of a rage-blinded Batman was a nice touch. The subplots weaved together. This wasn't always done to great effect, but I never felt confused or that something was wholly out of place, bar the CCTV reveals, which were insanely bad. Yeah, they were. I
think most people agree, even people like the movie, that that's a bit of a clunky way of introducing it.
Yeah, well, I just think it's a visual medium, and then to have someone clicking on links when you can do anything you want. You know, I remember when they introduced Hawkeye, I thought that was quite a cool way of doing it. It was brief, but it made him seem cooler than he actually is.
I also think there's a tantalising, you don't have to show everything. I know, like, all these films are coming, Justice League start shooting next month, but like, you could have just had Cyborg's father, like, saying, I need to save my son or something, and like, he's working on a project. You don't have to literally show it, I don't think.
It just felt like they were retrofitted, because it didn't seem to be a natural thing.
No, they've all been filmed more recently. And when they were filming BVS, was like, insert here.
But Vincent thought the subplots weave together well. Interesting.
Cool. This is Tejas. He is from Bombay, I think. Let's have a look. Yes. So he runs a geek channel, which he discussed the show, the movie on, called geekfruit.in. So check that out.
Little plug.
BVS was a mess. We can all agree. We can't.
We can't all agree. That's the problem.
But we can all get along still.
Yeah,
that's important.
Don't be nasty.
For me, the biggest disappointment, while I enjoyed Ben Affleck's performance, was that we've lost another chance at showcasing Batman as the world's greatest detective. I thought we were getting a veteran and experienced version of the character, and was disappointed to see that he couldn't figure out that Lex Luthor was behind the simplistic plot. The whole versus thing was built on such flimsy ground, and the Batman we all know and love wouldn't have fallen for it so easily. Not to mention the fact that he was literally seconds away from killing Superman. He was seconds away from doing it.
I think that is really interesting, and I do think that we thought we were going to get that Detective Batman in this one.
Yeah.
And maybe we will if we do see Ben Affleck films. But he does do more stupid things than you'd expect Batman to do.
Yeah, he's so blinded. I guess the get out of jail with that is like he's so blinded by this rage and anger that it's clouding his judgment.
Yeah. Here's a positive I can get behind. Vilius says, while struggling to outline the positives in your latest show, one thing you didn't mention was the music. Hans Zimmer is the king of movie soundtracks, and every single beat throughout the movie coalesced perfectly, giving the otherwise grim and overblown movie the saving grace it needed in the audible atmospheric vibes. I would not be surprised to see an Oscar nod to his and Junkie XL's effort, in spite of the movie's critical failings. Yeah, I thought the score was really good. Yeah. I like the way it took the Man of Steel.
I like the Man of Steel theme.
I love that score. And sort of added to it.
That, and in the words of Gavin, who sometimes appears on the show, that Wonder Woman theme is banging.
It is banging.
It's mad, isn't it? It's very different.
Yeah, and I got to interview Hans Zimmer last week. We haven't had time to edit it yet, but I got him to pick his 3 favourite movie scores, which is really interesting. So that'll be on the site in the next few days.
This is Joffrey. It's not Jeffrey, he says pronounced Joffrey. It is wise for Warner Brothers and DC to make this launch pad film so inside baseball. I keep reading that BVS is for the fans, and I feel like I am a fan of Batman and Superman, but I felt so in the dark on a lot of the movie. I can't get over how dour Superman is and how Batman seems to be a stone-cold killer. I am far more knowledgeable of this universe than your average moviegoer, so how are they going to latch onto this series when I am finding it so hard to do myself? It's going to be hard climbing this comic universe ladder when the first 2 rungs are broken.
I like the way you put that.
Yeah.
It was unnecessarily confusing, I think.
I think that's one of the interesting debates that's ongoing is, obviously these characters have existed for 75, 80 years, these 2 in particular. That in that time, lots of writers have worked on these characters, and there's a degree of interpretation and adaptation. And what with this movie is like, how far can you stray from what has been established as the core of a character, where it stops being interpretation and it's portrayal? And I think that's what Snyder's particularly coming under fire for in his characterization of Batman and Superman. He's using kind of anomalies in the characters that were used to make points about them. So Batman killing someone. Yeah. And he's kind of latching onto that and kind of putting it into the core of the character. Well, where he is now in his life.
I don't know if that comes up here, but I'm sure someone said that if Batman's going to kill someone, the whole film should revolve around the build-up to that kill because it's such an important thing. So to just have him kill a bunch of people, it takes away the power of that decision.
Because he's breaking his lifelong rule at this desperate time. And again, is it because he's blinded by rage and all this sort of stuff? But you feel like he's been doing that for a while. He's been branding people, which is a death sentence.
Yep. And I think the point there is that it is weirdly inaccessible, some of it, unless you know a lot of stuff. And there's an interesting email coming up from one of us. We can talk about that some more, someone who watched it in China.
But also lots of debate amongst DC fans as what some of it means.
Yeah, who's that? What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's the Flash, not Robin now. Yeah, I was struggling to find people that really liked it for my one. So Jazzy J didn't really like it, but he did put 3 positives. He said the good. Ben Affleck as Bruce, The Dark Knight, exceeded my expectations. Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, and Jeremy Irons as Alfred, providing the only genuine humour throughout. And actually, that kind of echoed what a lot of people who were on the fence about the film, when they would put positives and negatives in their emails, everyone could agree that Affleck, Gadot and Irons were kind of the best things in it.
Yeah, the more things about it, the more I really like Jeremy Irons is the most active Alfred we've ever had, like the most involved during the action, rather than someone just this moral voice.
Yeah.
Having to go at Batman during the day.
Yeah.
This is George. Even though it was over 2 hours long, it still felt rushed and moved along at an exhausting pace. There was not much in the way of character development for any of the three main characters. The only thing that was fully developed was Batman's complete contempt for Superman, which he apparently got over in under a minute. It's a very quick turn, isn't it?
Yep. Good point. Stephen Tallude writes from New York. He says, I've seen this movie twice now, and both times walking out with different experiences. The first time, like most, I came out feeling underwhelmed and disappointed. But after the second time, I found it to be a fantastic film. Pun there. I meant it to be punny because it truly is a film for comic book fans. What Snyder was trying to give us was a comic book on the big screen, with each frame composed as if it were live comic book panels. Each scene feeling less and less like loose subplots, i.e. the Africa subplot, but events that set forth a chain of reactions. And even that scene, when Superman lands in the building to save Lois, right as he lands and looks up, it felt like I was looking at a comic panel, with colours that pop like soups, blue and red on top of the yellow debris as Bats grapples down during their fight, or the bright green of the kryptonite against the colours of Superman's suit as Superman flies straight into Doomsday. So yeah, Stephen thinks he was looking at a kind of living, breathing comic.
Yeah, and I think Snyder's your man for that. Like Watchmen shows you that you can take a panel and bring it to life. But like comics are not just visual, they're a really great storytelling medium as well.
Yeah. That's interesting. If you like movies that look like panels from comics, watch my old favourite Flash Gordon. That really looks like a comic book brought to life.
Robert Spake from Southampton. I still can't believe I've just seen a Superman movie where he barely smiles. Where's the compassion, the kindness, the love of humanity? None of that comes across in the film, and to me those are essential components of the character. And also Batman killing people. What the... Like, if Batman actually did get to a point where he compromised his no-killing rule, then that should be the focus of the whole movie, which is what you're saying, because that would actually lead to a philosophical examination of the code and why it was so important to the character. But Snyder seems to think that you need to kill someone first to know how not to do it again. It's a bit of fun, isn't it? Killing people.
It's a bit of fun. Killing Robin.
More like, we recorded the show last week and thinking about it all week, so many different opinions. And trying to work out what's the thing that really didn't ring with me. And it was Superman, I think. Like, I love that character so much. Like, so many great incarnations of it. And it's just like, you want him to save everyone. You want him to bring out the best in people. And
when there's a bomb going off, you don't want him to be looking straight into camera with a weird expression on his face.
Yeah.
You want him to be trying to save people. Or...
Also, that scene, let him speak. I think it's just... I was looking forward to that scene because it was like, Superman's going to be able to articulate what it's like to be him and what he's here to do. And yeah, I've seen him dragging a boat in the Arctic and it looks cool because the Northern Lights are above him. But I want him to speak and tell the world what he's here and what he stands for.
Yeah. And
Snyder denies him that moment. He just has everything blow up around him.
We're ragging on it again.
Well, no.
I'm going to do a positive.
Yeah.
Carl G. A lot of people are ripping this film down too much. I think Carl's talking to me and you.
Yeah.
I can't see how this is not as bad as Dark Knight Rises. Okay, yeah, this one's a big comparison, but I think it's interesting. And my point being is Nolan created this ultra-realistic Gotham, even to the point where Ra's wasn't immortal. And that held up through the sequel with Ledger, etc. But Rises completely contradicts and kicks the previous films in the nuts, as the realism flew out the window. With his non-existent cartilage in his bones, which is apparently fixed with one leg brace, the spinal break which would heal in months hanging from a rope, the nuke at the end, and the fact that a Bruce Wayne that's recovering from a spinal break gets all the way back to Gotham. So my point is at least the plot holes in BVS aren't a kick in the face to Man of Steel, and I'd rather be left with questions than full-blown disappointment, as I saw my favourite Batman trilogy hit the deck so badly with Rises. With BVS, things could be a lot worse. Interesting. I think I did like Dark Knight Rises better than Batman v Superman, though, if Carl's making me compare the two.
Yeah, me too. Good. Ronan. I believe that Zack Snyder's vision to plan the foundations of the Justice League in this film slightly took away the basis of what the film was mainly about in Batman fighting Superman. And that if it lost the title Batman v Superman and took a title of Dawn of Justice, I feel that it may have made the context of the film more compelling and gripping to the audience and critics. That being said, I love the movie despite its flaws it has, and was interested in your feedback of the film on your previous show. Was hoping to hear what you think of this. Would the film have been better received if it was called Dawn of Justice rather than Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice?
It's an interesting point.
Yeah, I think there's a load of good things in that movie. Like I do like lots of it, and I think it just needs rejigging in some way.
Or do you think it could have been 2 separate movies? So you got your Batman v Superman movie, and then the Justice League is put together in another movie.
The better movie in this movie is Batman v Superman. The climax of the entire movie should be them fighting, and them coming together over that, and then the epilogue isn't the death of Superman, which is a huge story. The epilogue is them. It's like anticlimactic, but satisfied. It's them discussing and like working out where they go from there.
So maybe we're thinking that it's 2 good films that were sploshed together to make one film that.
I think so. I think well, the whole thing, like, it started off production as Man of Steel 2. If rumours are to believe, the decision to put Batman was taken very soon to the announcement at Comic-Con, and then I guess they had to like work in people's reception of Man of Steel. Set up Justice League. Very difficult movie to make and hit all those beats and still make a movie.
Introduce Lex properly.
Yeah, lots of stuff.
Create Doomsday.
Introduce all the Kirby stuff.
Yeah.
Set up Darkseid. It's a very difficult movie to make.
Biting off more than you can chew. Andika has some advice for us, Daniel. Seems like none of you really enjoy Batman v Superman, so I will give you a quick tip on how to enjoy the movie. Ready?
Okay.
Turn off that over-criticising part of your brain. Seriously, I kind of noticed it about 50 minutes into the movie when there are too much hows and whys popping on my head and regarding the story and the narration of the film. So I just turned it off. It's not a Christopher Nolan movie anyway. I just relax and enjoy the movie for what it is, and as a result, I really enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
No, I can't do that. I can't do that. I want the filmmakers to treat me with respect.
Yeah.
And I feel like with all these plot holes and lapses in logic, that they're treating me with disdain. Just saying, oh, well.
I think you can do a couple. Like, I'm not usually, like, there's some people, and you'll know those people, whatever movie it is, going, well, that would never happen, or what about that? And I just think, oh, jog on, like, there's going to be like suspension of disbelief with more stuff, but if there's so many that you can't ignore it does, for me, it infects my enjoyment.
Well, there's normally 1 or 2 things that happen in films of this nature, and we do jump on them. Everyone jumps on them, and recently it happened with Force Awakens. You know, J.J. Abrams actually came out and apologised and said, you know, the scene with Rey and Leia at the end, that they should have kind of had a moment together. And
Chewie walking past as well.
Yeah, kind of brushed past, And he said, that's something that we overlooked. And it was interesting, the Russo brothers recently did an interview where they said they spent over 6 months with the Civil War script, like taking a week on each character and just going through everything, trying to figure out if every decision they make is logical and things like that. And it does need that care and precision, and still stuff will fall through the cracks. It just seems surprising in a movie this big that there were so many. Because normally I absolutely can just overlook 1 or 2. Sure, definitely the Marvel movies are full of them, but it's just that many.
I think going back to Dark Knight Rises, that's why even though you see it and you're like, how do you get back to Gotham? That's one of the big ones in that movie. You're like, but at the same time you can use another kind of get out of jail card. You go, he's Batman. And you can play those kind of loopholes against character traits, and that one, because there's so few in that movie. Somebody's gonna write loads of them, but like there's
there are a few.
There's not enough in that movie to make me fixate on them rather than what's going on in the story.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed.
George is written in. Dear Mr. Eisenberg mistakenly think he was cast as the Joker. I'm assuming they were going for an evil Zuckerberg, but even the Lois and Clark Lex Luthor was better. Yeah, it was good. Even the explosion scene with the note on the jar seemed more like something the Joker would do. Jar of piss.
Yeah.
Whose piss do you think it was? Think it was his?
Yeah.
Or do you reckon he might have got someone to do it?
Wow, I wasn't expecting that question. Maybe his... Doomsday's wee.
Yeah, I thought they were going to play more... I thought he could play more Zuckerberg for longer. Yeah.
Well, I just didn't think... I wasn't expecting him to go so mad. And we've got a video we've still not put on the site where I talk to him about certain things he does at the end that don't really make sense. And Eisenberg said, he's just gone insane. He's gone insane by the end of the movie, so he's not thinking straight.
Somebody made I can't remember what critic it was, but they made the comparison. I think it's spot on. He's become DC's Renfield to Dracula. He's just lost his mind, which is... Renfield's not an important enough character. Lex Luthor's a big, important character. And you may be impressing how powerful these other beings are. You've kind of lost Lex Luthor.
Yeah, and the Renfield thing is because at the end he's in a cell in service of
a bit higher being.
Yeah. Donald Murray says, I enjoyed most of the movie, particularly Ben Affleck as Batman. I thought he was great Bruce Wayne. I really liked the opening scenes through his eyes on the Metropolis disaster, my favourite bit of the film. I found the movie refreshing in a way, not expecting a punchline joke after every line. Rewatching some of the Marvel movies, after hearing the jokes once, they don't work as well. I think that's true, actually. Avengers, I found deeply unfunny the second time, and I found it really funny the first time.
Yeah. No name on this.
Yes, but I put it in nevertheless.
Next, something.
Yeah.
There is a level of objectivity to storytelling. And then he goes on to say, or she, no one should ever apologise for liking something. That is an opinion and entirely subjective. Like, whatever appeals to you, and be proud of it. But if someone tries to argue BVS is a good film, the only possible way I can think they've come to that conclusion is because they've deluded themselves, or because they know absolutely nothing about even the basics of storytelling. It was a mess. It was objectively a narrative mess, with nonsense motivations, no character arcs, plot holes galore, and of course Justice League cameos thrown in purely for the sake of them. I understand liking those cameos, because as a comic book fan, they're fun to watch, but that scene has to be the most laughably bad writing in a comic book film for years. I think what he's saying about, or she's saying about objectivity storytelling, I think they're kind of received wisdom about what makes good stories, but then there's also good stories that break those rules.
Yeah.
So while there are books, and he cites Robert McKee's story, and there's 7 basic plots and Into the Woods by James Good Woods, it's like there are things that work 9 times out of 10, but you can break them, and it kind of contradicts the point about like if you like something, like it, and you can also like people like stuff that isn't very good. So I don't know whether that's entirely true, but I understand some of the points you're making.
Yeah. Matthew Black had a very interesting email, actually. He said, just want to say something about Batman v Superman. I suffer from crippling anxiety and depression, and most of the time can't leave my house. But being a huge DC fan, Martian Manhunter, I was so excited about this movie, but also dreading its release, as I knew I wouldn't be able to go. I would have to wait for the DVD. Instead, I found the want and need to see it was way too much, and it got me out of my front door and to my local movie house on release day to see it. Sure, I felt sick most of the time, but that's a small price to pay, as Batman v Superman is full of big moments, not all good and not all bad, but what I'll remember about this movie is that it was big enough for me to get out my front door and feel normal for 3 hours. I guess what I'm trying to say is that movies are all things to all people, and I hope you read this so that anyone else watching this has the same as me will feel better and use things they love to get over the sickness and feel normal even for a day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing that's come from BVS.
Yes, a really lovely positive.
Yeah.
Thanks for writing in, Matthew.
Thank you. Ashley, good and bad. So I respectfully disagree with you guys on this one. Thank you. I really enjoy... No, respectfully
nice.
disagree. Yeah,
it's all about respect.
I don't mind people disagreeing with us.
Yeah.
People are entitled to their own opinion. I really enjoyed Batman v Superman. I went into the movie concerned from all the negative reviews that the film had gotten, but found myself thoroughly entertained throughout. I saw it with 4 friends, 2 of whom have no comic book knowledge, and they all really enjoyed it. The good, Affleck as Batman, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, Jeremy Irons as Alfred, the same things. Fight scenes in general were quite good. Seeing the future members of Justice League, I don't know if it's a boy or girl, Ashley. Like that dynamic of the trio at the end fight was awesome.
So Ashley, you said you really liked it. You said you really liked it. This is why I put this one in and put it in agreeing with us. You said you really liked it and listed the good stuff. Awesome. But
then there is a substantial amount of caveats to the good. And this is not like, I think we've put this in because I feel people who still enjoy it still have problems with it.
Yeah.
And I think, And
people who didn't like it did like bits of it as well.
Yeah, so I think the 2 schools of thought on this, ultimately what I want to get across is, I think we're quite close together. Like, there's lots of people who love it but can see the problems. And it just swings slightly one way or the other. The bad, the story was all over the place. Doomsday was really extraneous. The death of Superman, we all know that Superman's not dead. Batman's brutality, Lex Luthor is by Eisenberg, and the Batman-Superman fight ended so abruptly.
Some good bads there.
From Melbourne, Australia.
Thank you, Melbourne. This is from Judon Foster, who says, first of all, I want to emphasise that this was one of, if not the best superhero movie ever, and that's in caps. I've read the complaints from the critics, but my biggest problem is that they were looking for it to be like a Marvel movie, and that was the biggest mistake. I felt like BVS went away from all the jokey jokes that is the Marvel movies. I like the darker tone and build up towards the fight between Bats and Supes. Then the introduction of Wonder Woman was a good setup to her movie coming next year. And then Jude Law goes on to say, and I think this is maybe directed to me and you.
Okay.
If you didn't get the movie or was confused about it, that's on you. Maybe too much Marvel in your system has jaded your thoughts on what a superhero movie should be. This is DC, Warner Brothers' way on how they want to go from here. What I've been seeing, the only people who are enjoying the movie are the fans. I've seen more of a positive response to this movie than anything else. I like listening to you guys, but I never disagreed more strongly or seen such a bias towards a movie like you guys have had from the start, and it is sad, but it doesn't matter. End of the day, Batman v Superman is the movie for the ages, and DC has a good future ahead of them, regardless of the so-called critics. Yeah, I mean, you do get the impression that fans are liking it more than critics, although it's been really interesting, I think, that what I said was going to happen on here a few weeks ago was that it would have a massive opening weekend and then a real drop-off once the reviews and the word of mouth started getting around. And I think it's had the biggest drop-off in history, something like that. So it is interesting that opening burst, when word seems to have got around, it seems to have been not good in the same way that other superhero movies have held on for 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah. Also, like, you know, I think there's a perception that we've been biased against this movie, and I think just every step of the way, we've just always given our opinion, and our opinion is subjective, and therefore is biased. It's biased by all the things that make you you and make me me, and things we like and dislike. And we've said positive things about the film in the lead up, maybe more negative because we didn't like some of the stuff we saw. It's not kind of an unfair bias, and it's not a bias that, personally, that I'm not up for changing. If I sat down and I love that movie, I have no vested interest in saying otherwise. And I hope Wonder Woman, and I think Suicide Squad looks great.
Well, you always got to try and go in with an open mind, even though it's hard. And I was super excited the first 10 minutes. But then, you know, my opinion changed. The film went on, as it's allowed to.
Yeah. And you don't like the Suicide Squad trailer all that much. I really like it.
Maybe I just went beyond the show that week. Or maybe I like the film and you won't like the film.
Yeah. Jared has written into the Rebel Base show that we do here, but I think this is his first time writing into the superhero show. He lives in China. I watched BVS in a theatre in Beijing over the weekend. It was an interesting experience. I'm dating a Chinese guy who knows very little about comics and the cinematic universes DC and Marvel are trying to establish. And while that might be said of a lot of moviegoers worldwide, I think it's especially true for the Chinese audience. It was interesting sitting in the theatre and hearing people around me ask, "Who is that?" when Wonder Woman appeared in costume. My boyfriend asked, "Who is the girl Superman?" was after the movie. When the clash finally came between Batman and Superman, people around me were asking, "Why are they fighting?" And their dates would reply, "I don't know." During the Bat Dream, I think the whole audience was lost, myself included, with the references to Darkseid and the future Flash. I think the majority of the audience thought Batman could fly after the opening credits of the movie. This movie teased a lot of things, but when the audience doesn't know what's being teased, it just creates a 2.5-hour movie full of confusion and unknown references, which doesn't make a moviegoer feel very good.
I think that's a really interesting point of view, because I think us doing this show and the people that watch it and the people that read IGN, we're kind of in a bubble where we know everything about these characters, or like to think we do, and we love them and we love all the Easter eggs. But if you're someone who doesn't keep up with what's happening in DC Comics and these movies, I wonder what you make of this film. Like, it's quite a lot going on. I think that the phrase earlier was inside baseball.
Yeah.
It would be even, we were confused. It's
quite alienating, some of it. Like, the comparison, and it's a Marvel comparison, but I've been saying last week when we've been discussing The Office, is in Civil War, they say the name Stephen Strange. And they just say a name. At that point, they hadn't cast anyone, they didn't have any, I'm sure they had people in mind and concept art. They didn't have to show anything. They didn't have to do anything. They just say a name. And everyone in the audience that doesn't know, it's just a name, it's a line, it's gone. But people who know, it's awesome. But if you show like the whole origin of Cyborg in like a minute, in this horrifying sequence, I think that could be quite alienating. And same with the Omega symbol and all that sort of stuff. And especially the deleted scene they've released this week.
I was just going to say that, which we've not spoken about.
I don't think they should have called it a deleted scene either. I think they should call it epilogue, and like that be their post-credit thing. Like they release a clip later in the weekend. I think saying deleted scene makes kind of the final cut seem not final.
Well, I wonder if they're going to release a deleted scene every week until, by the end of the year, the film's going to make a bit more sense, that all the questions we've had.
Doomsday Ween.
But even that scene, has had everyone scratching their head a little bit and trying to figure out who is what. And, is it Steppenwolf? Obviously, the mother boxes, and it's like, it's confusing. Okay, final email, Dan. I've saved the best for last. Jordan Lowe writes in and says, I know you guys hated BVS. Not sure if you watched the same movie as I did. I thought it was great, not without its issues, but Chris already made his mind up going into this that he was going to hate it. But somehow he loved the mediocre Deadpool and Ant-Man. A lot of fans are loving BVS, so what if it's too dark and not fun? Really, such a lame excuse for a critique. Not every movie has to be butterflies and balloons like an MCU film. You're an adult. Learn how to watch adult movies.
Chris has watched a lot of adult movies.
Yeah, I love adult movies. Every night before I go to sleep.
Yeah, you've been watching them for years.
Helps me sleep better. I didn't love Ant-Man. I quite liked it.
Yeah, and you and I were not massive fans of Deadpool. We liked it. We thought it was good.
Yeah.
But it's fair to say a lot of people loved it a lot more than us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say. I don't want butterflies and balloons in all my movies. I think I'm thinking now Up's the only film where I want butterflies and balloons.
I think it comes back to that point that something can be dark and still enjoyable.
Yeah.
And engrossing. I think we're kind of fixating maybe on.
And there seems to be this, you get this argument a lot these days that, I just want to turn my brain off to watch the film, and that the critics are overthinking it. Well, I don't want to turn my brain off when I watch a film. It's part of the enjoyment, is thinking about what I'm seeing on screen. And that's what makes it frustrating when there are plot holes and lapses in logic, because I feel like it's the filmmakers treating me with disdain and disrespect. Yeah. And I don't treat myself with those disdain and disrespect. I don't treat them with it. So, why do it? I don't treat these characters. I don't want them to treat the characters
like that. Yeah, the character's like, you want Superman to have some semblance of being Superman and to honour that rich heritage that existed for over 80 years. And this is Snyder's interpretation, but I'm not overly keen on that Superman. But there's still time. There's more directors. James Wan's working on Aquaman.
Yeah. I'm
super excited about that. They released a new picture of Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And we've got Justice League. I want all those movies to be awesome. I think Suicide Squad looks awesome. I think David Ayer is a great director. So I think there's a lot going for the DC universe, and I do want it to succeed.
Me too.
Cool. Any thoughts on anything superhero related, send it to us, always superhero@ign.com. And until next week, take care.